Hi friends, it's Lisa Hetrick, illustrator for Gina K Designs, and I'm so grateful you could join me today. I have a really fun card project that I'm going to share, and I'm calling it Watercolor 3 Ways because I'm going to be using 3 different watercolor mediums to replicate the look of this card. So we're going to play a little bit. I'm also going to be using this new stamp set from Emily at Gina K Designs. I really like this sentiment, so I want to give it a go. And I'm bringing in my Hello Beautiful stamp set with Gina K Designs. I'm also going to be using a lot of brand new inks in this project, and I'm going to be starting out by using this Amalgam ink. This ink is like, I just absolutely love it. It is my new favorite for using for watercolor mediums and any other kind of color medium that I don't want to bleed. So it's really fantastic. I'll talk a little bit more about it later. I'm also using key lime and sea glass from Gina K Designs. Now, these new products that I'm getting ready to share aren't necessarily new, actually. They're just great watercolor mediums that I've been using and I wanted to share with you. These are the Ecoline brush pens. Now, Ecoline brings forth they have a product that is liquid watercolor, and they also have it in these brush pens. And I really like the liquid watercolor so much, I thought I would give it a go in these brush pens and try it out. And these are very, very popular with hand lettering artists, and the colors are vibrant. And we're going to play with them today. I'm also going to be using some watercolor pencils. These are from Faber Castell. These are Albrecht Duhrers. There are a couple different blues here, and I'm not really sure which ones I'm going to use yet because I kind of want to get a two-tone look on one of the flowers. So these are the 3 watercolors that I'm thinking about using. Okay. And I'm also going to be using some Dr. P.H. Martin's Radiant watercolors. I'm not going to lie, people. These are like the unicorn of watercolor for me. I know I say that about a lot of watercolor mediums that I use, but I really, really love the Radiant watercolors. This is one of my palettes. It's just a porcelain plate from Target. So we're going to be using those today too. I have a piece of Gina K Designs black cardstock that I'm using, and it is folded at the top in an A2 sized card, and that's going to be my card base for this project. I also have a piece of watercolor paper cut to 3 by 5. I believe it's like 3 by 5 that I'm going to be using in this project as well. So, and the watercolor paper is from Aquabee. It is from Bee Paper. It's one of my favorites. So what I'm going to do is get started on the background for the watercolor paper, and I'm taking the sea glass and the key lime dye-based inks from Gina K, and I'm just mashing them down onto my craft mat. Now, you could use distress oxide inks, you could use watercolors, you could use all kinds of things, but sometimes we can get overwhelmed by the amount of supplies that we might have, and I really wanted to play around with the dye-based inks here to see what kind of blues and blue-greens that I could get for the background. Now, it's going to be a little bit different than the original design that I showed you in the beginning, but that's okay because I'm experimenting and I'm doing a whole different kind of thing with this card. So you can see that the colors, the sea glass is gorgeous. It's got a lot of green in it, and when I bring the key lime into it, it really kind of is a nice contrast to that color. So I really think they complement each other very well. Okay, so now I'm going to get into the watercoloring part of the tutorial, and I'm using the bloom from the Hello Beautiful stamp set, and I'm also, I've stamped them down with the Amalgam jet black ink from Gina K, and the reason why I'm using this ink is because when I go to start to color with these watercolor mediums, it's not going to bleed, and it's just amazing. So I'm starting out with the watercolor pencils from Faber Castell, and you can see that I have turned the watercolor pencils on the side. And this is how I like to lay down color when I'm using watercolor pencils. I think it's a lot easier. You get a little bit better coverage of color, and it is you get less scratchiness when you, instead of using the pencil vertically, you get more scratches with it. So when you lay it on its side, you really get more, you're able to lay down more pigment. So I'm just blending these two colors together, and I want to show you here, I think I'm going to do this right here on the side. No, I'm going to put it on some scratch paper here. I want to show you that watercolor pencils good watercolor pencils have a lot of great pigment in them, and a good watercolor pencil is when you're able to add water to it and you get nothing but pigment, and it really does blend out really, really well. So these ones from Faber Castell are really, really good. There are a lot of fantastic brands on the market. I happen to really love these. I just picked up the Artezas, and I'm going to be sharing them soon in another tutorial, just to kind of test them up against the Faber Castells. But I just nerded out on you there. Sorry about that. Okay, so we're going to move ahead with the Ecolines. Now, not going to lie, people, the Ecolines are gorgeous, gorgeous, radiant, radiant color. And I kind of have overdone it a little bit here. I put down way too much color and didn't need this much flicking of color. These two colors complement each other very, very well. They're the pink and the orange that come in the 10 brush pack. But because these colors are their liquid watercolors, they are super radiant, and you can see that it is sort of, I wouldn't say a fail on my part, but I really, really put down way too much color. So I end up taking away some of the color and kind of adding back in some of the pink so that I can try to get a little bit of variegation of color here so that we can see the center and we can see the outer edge. But next time I would have probably put less orange in. But I think it's pretty anyway. The two colors came out very well. So I'm just dipping my water brush in my porcelain plate here, where I have some of the radiant watercolors already in here. Now, I will tell you that the Ecoline watercolors and the P.H. Martin Radiant watercolors are both extremely saturated. So I think if you were trying to make a decision about watercolor between the two of them, it would purely just be on preference. I actually like the Radiant watercolors more than I do the Ecolines, but I actually love them both because they are very, very deep and rich. And you can see here, this color is so saturated. And I just think it's beautiful. It's just a really, really nice watercolor. I went ahead and sprayed some water that had a little bit of Perfect Pearls in it onto the watercolor flowers, just to kind of take a little bit of the watercolor away. I wanted to add a little bit of shimmer to these flowers and just kind of tone down those two really super vibrant colors. So moving on to the little bitty flower that's going to be at the top, I'm just adding in one layer of watercolor pencils, and I'm using the blue, and I'm just going to take that blue and kind of with the water brush and spread it out all the way to the edges. And I'm intentionally with this flower, leaving a little bit of white in the flower because I want a little bit of a contrast here. Okay, so I'm moving on to the leaves that are going to nest behind one of the big flowers. And I just went ahead and inked it up in the key lime and then took my water brush and dabbed it down. Didn't squeeze extra water in, but dabbed it right into the stamp to kind of create a little bit of a texture. And you can see here when you stamp with it, it gives you a nice variegation of color. So here are the the 4 flowers and the 2 leaves, and I just kind of fussy cut them out, and you can see, this color and that super shine, it's just so radiant. That pink is just off the hook from the Radiant watercolors. And here you can see a lot of the texture in the watercolor pencils. So it's really a really super fun way to use your watercolor mediums to create this card. Okay, so here's my base, and I'm just kind of getting my flowers in position and getting a good look at where I might want to position them. And they are going to, when I put them down, I am going to have them bleed off the page a little bit. and just kind of trim them up. So I'm using a little bit of white glue, and I kind of got a little bit too much glue here, but that's okay. And I adhered them and just kind of trimmed out those edges so that those flowers looked like they were bleeding off the edge. And I don't really trust myself with this really big sentiment, just doing some free range stamping. So I broke out my Misty because I want to get that sentiment nested between those three flowers. And I really want some of those beautiful curls and waves and beautiful things that Emily's got going on in her hand lettering to kind of nest around those flowers. And you can see how those T's are nesting right in, and that little is nesting right in with the leaves, and everything just kind of looks like it's all cohesive together. Here's what the two cards look like together. And even though I was inspired by the first design, I really am digging the way this one looks. And here's the final card. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed today's tutorial, and I'll see you next time.